Hey everybody, Stu Smith here with another Tactical Fitness Report, and we have a special guest, Jim Mabry from the class of 1977 of the United States Naval Academy, fellow alum. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to talk about tactical fitness, and we're going to kind of make this a combination between kind of like my to, through, and after series, where we talk about your life. But I really am interested in talking about tactical fitness with you because where people screw up in preparing for jobs in the tactical professions, whether it's military, law enforcement, firefighting, special ops, is they just don't realize there's three phases that they should be dealing with. And we're going to talk about phase 4 because you're living it right now. And real quick, the phases are: you got to pass a test to get to the training. You have to pass a boot camp, a selection, an academy to get through the training. So your training should differ a little bit and be a little more specific towards those future challenges of that school. And then now you spend a lot of time being an active duty operator, whether you are in the military. For you, you spent almost 30 years as a firefighter as well. And we're going to talk about that journey and that job and transition as well. And then phase 4, where you are and I are both now living, is that post tactical career. And you're retired or former service, and you're just trying to live a life of activity and reduction of pain and some of the issues that occur from doing a rather very physical and potentially dangerous job. So that's the journey of tactical fitness that people don't think about, right? And you're going to be older longer than you are younger in a career profession. And that comes with its own changes and evolutionary process that has to occur in your journey. So let's start off with you, Jim, and let's just say who you were in 1976 as you were applying to the Naval Academy. And let's talk about that transition, becoming a military member.
Gotcha. First of all, I grew up in a home with some really, really incredible parents. My dad was a barber. My mom was a Scottish immigrant. He wasn't Navy enlisted. He met her in 1951 when he was on a world cruise. He was on the East Coast during Korea instead of the West Coast. He actually fought in the Pacific during World War II. He had his dad had passed away when he was 13. His mom signed for him when he was 16. He went in the Navy with a guy from Glendale named Martin Robinson, AKA Marty Robbins, a country western singer. So both of those guys' mothers signed. They went. 51, he met my mom, sent her some Arizona Highways magazines for a couple of years. She'd come from a boxing background. My dad had come from a boxing background. Wow. One of his other buddies in Glendale was a guy named Jimmy Martinez. He was a world-class middleweight in the 50s. And so I came from an athletic past. My folks were very small people. Like 5'3" and 125 was my mom. My dad was like 5'5", maybe 150 at his heaviest. And I have two brothers. We were always the smallest guys in the neighborhood, but nobody messed with us because we boxed, we wrestled. My dad, in the summer when he wasn't cutting hair, he worked out at Turf Paradise, which is a horse racing track out in North Phoenix. And he would take these broken down horses when a guy named Richard Hazelton, who's a Hall of Fame trainer, would take his good horses to Sportsman Park in Chicago and run them in the summer. So my dad would take his broken down horses and he would train them and get them fit. So I learned a lot about getting fit from horses. And you had talked one time about running in the sand and going where footsteps were. And it cracked me up because I used to go out on a training track when I was a kid with my brothers and run, and we would run where the horse hooves were. And so we were always into physical fitness. We never watched TV, much TV. My mom thought like The Untouchables was terrible, too violent. We said yes, sir, no, sir, in my home because of my dad's military background. And I always had great mentors. So if I had to say one thing for young people to do is always surround yourself with people better than yourself. And if somebody's, there's a lot of coaches out there and that think they know something, but if somebody can show you how to do it and they know how to do it, you want to learn how to kick? Hey, watch a guy who can, hit a ball with his body's 50 or 60 yards. The thing that impressed me about you when I started watching YouTube videos is you're out there outperforming at 50 plus those Naval Academy guys and gals. And I was like, hey, that guy's a stud. So surround yourself with great people from the get-go.
Well, hey, that's a very good point. That sounds like a lot of fun growing up. I mean, I would say, in the 80s is a little bit different. Your generation would have called us the MTV generation and made fun of us. But, we were outside a lot. There wasn't a whole lot of TV that you could watch. I think we had 3 whole channels that you could flick through. But,
same here.
You spent most of your time outside doing stuff. And that was helpful. I think back then you had good PE classes. You were just active. You were outside all the time. You didn't need to have to resort to, a particular training program to specifically train for military service back then. Your life prepared you for military service and they just fine-tuned it a little bit, right? And made it a little bit better. So is that how you found your first, few months at the Naval Academy to be just a transition into military service other than, crazy discipline?
There was a couple things that motivated me. When I was about 12 years old, there was a public pool. We don't have, rich kids had swimming pools out here. Kids like me, we swam in canals. So my dad was a barber and we weren't poor. We always had food on the table, but rich kids had swimming pools. We'd go to the public pools in the summer and all the studs would have on their bathing suits, mile swim. So they had these little red seahorses that they put from Boy Scouts on their bathing suits. And all the chicks really like, all the ladies, excuse me, really like the guys that had the thing. And being all of 4 foot something, I went and I said, I got to be able to swim a mile, So that was my first goal. And did it. Unfortunately, the results weren't quite what I thought you would get after I got my mile swim. I still didn't have any girlfriends or anything. But I went out for freshman basketball. I'll get to the Naval Academy here in a second. I went out for freshman basketball, Stu, but they really didn't have a huge demand for a 4'10", 92-pound, guard. So I was there practicing one day on a Saturday, and they just happened to have a quadrangular wrestling match. And the 98-pounder didn't make weight so they had 4 teams there, including my high school's team. And it's on a Saturday, and they said, hey, all you kids that are here in the gym, we want you to roll mats out to help us for the quadrangular here today. And so the coach came out and he goes, hey, our 98-pounder didn't make weight. How many of you guys out here are 98 pounds? About half a dozen hands went up. And then he said, which one of you guys, if I had to get you guys in a fight, which one of you guys would win? And I threw my hand up and the other guys all pointed to me. And the coach said, okay, you're elected, you're going. And so they put me in a uniform. I had no idea what I was doing. The very first guy I wrestled was like 3rd in the state the previous year. Within a matter of seconds, I was like on my back, trying to get away. And that match was over with. So, but I said, hey, I'm not done here. So I went up to the wrestling room. There was a kid and he goes, hey, let me show you a couple moves. First of all, just tackle a kid the next time, get him down, and then get a chicken wing and a half Nelson. And he showed me how to do it. And fortunately for me, the second match I wrestled, the kid was worse than I was. So anyway, so that got me excited about wrestling and everything. I ended up wrestling JV. The guy came back, the freshman guy. But after that, I told everybody, I said, hey, I'm going to be a state champion and I'm going to go to the Naval Academy. And
Damn.
so you have to know where you want to go. And nobody can tell you what you can do and what you can't do. It's all right here and it's all right here. And there's one thing that Stu Smith teaches, and that's don't just survive, compete.
Yeah.
And you got to compete. And most of the time you're competing against yourself and seeing how good you can get. Well, long story short, my senior year, I went undefeated, state champion. Ed Peary, who was a wrestling coach at the Naval Academy, got a hold of me and said, hey, come on out. And my grades were pretty good. And so that was it. I got a hold of Barry Goldwater. We had typewriters then. We didn't have all this stuff. So I started sending Barry Goldwater, who ran for president in '64. He was a senator here. I started sending him letters. And my mom told me, hey, just keep calling him. Keep calling him, keep calling him, keep calling him. Bug the guy. Be persistent. That's another thing you need. Persistence.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And so she said, keep calling the guy. So finally, I called him. And I think he finally gave me a nomination just because he was so tired of this, little kid calling him all the time going, I want to go to the Naval Academy. So that is my Naval Academy story to get me in. I'd never been on an airplane. I go to Friendship in Baltimore. I fly in there and I look around and I see a couple of guys, Navy enlisted, that were in, white, their white uniform. One guy, his name was Ed Canopa. He happened to be my plebe summer roommate. I ran into him and we shared a hotel room. So July 9th, 1973, I wandered into the Naval Academy, lost, I'd worked all summer to get my $300 so that I could give them that $300 check to pay for all my initial uniforms. And that was it. I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I had no idea how much work he had to do at the place. So
my story was very similar. I had no idea. I flew in, met a buddy that was also flying from Florida, and we wound up being lifelong friends, the whole time. And it's crazy. I mean, I didn't even know the ranks of the Navy when I walked in there. You think you would learn the ranks of the Navy, what they looked like, what they were. I mean, I didn't even know them, so it was a steep learning curve for me.
Me too.
For everything. But it was fun. It was a fun challenge and it was something new. Before we move on, I have to mention Coach Ed Peary. You've had some experience with him. I have too. He was there when I was there as a midshipman. He had finished wrestling by then. He's more administrator, running the PE department. And then I went back as a company officer about 6 years later. Wow. And ran the SEAL program there. And cool. For a year before I was a company officer, they put me in the PE department. So I worked for Ed Peary.
Oh, wow.
And he was incredible. Rest in peace. That man was just a legend there. I think he was probably there for over 40 years, just incredible. And I remember going up to him and asking him about the candidate fitness assessment that he created, right? He and a team of administrators and coaches created this fitness assessment that the midshipmen use now. And it's a basketball throw and the standard pull-up, push-up, sit-ups, a little shuttle run, and a mile run, right? And I said, and no other fitness test out there has a basketball toss. They might have a medicine ball toss that shows power. But I'm like, hey, coach, what is this basketball toss? Why do I have to get on their knees and throw this basketball? What are we testing here? And what's that got to do with anything in the military? Right. And, so I was going in there kind of like the young cocky SEAL, talking to the coach, I did not know he had created it. And he just pulled his glasses down, looked at me, he goes, son, this is a measurement of athletic potential. And I was like, okay, coach, say no more. It was almost like Yoda talking to Luke Skywalker, right? I mean, it was just like, yes, Jedi Master. And, that was one of my special moments with Coach Ed Perry.
He was a man of few words, but a man of action.
Oh man, he was incredible person.
I got an Ed Perry story too.
All right.
So plebe year, I go there, and so I get here. I had been this wrestling stud in Arizona, so I go there, and in the wrestling room they got Lloyd Keyser, who got commissioned like in '73, got beat by Dan Gable, who was the '72 Olympic champion at 149 and a half pounds. So Lloyd Keyser, the guy was a stud, Butch Keyser. They had Dan Mutler in there, who like in '74 maybe was a national champion. I mean, they just had a room full of guys. And I mean, I was getting ragdolled and trying really hard, but I was just getting ragdolled on a regular basis. Then they brought Lehigh down before the season started, and they had me wrestle a guy named Mike Frick. And Mike Frick, if you look at like Lehigh's wrestling history, and so the guy beat me like 11-1 in a little practice match. Not only did he beat me, he just beat me up. Like for 2 or 3 days, I couldn't. So I went back up to my room and I cried because I said, there's no way I'm going to be a national champion here and get through this thing. So I went to Coach Peary and I said, Coach, I don't know, man. And I said, I don't know. And he goes, hey, you got to do what you got to do. And he told me, he said, what do you want to be? He goes, you want to be a national champion? You want to be a naval officer, a Marine officer? He said, you do what you can do best. And if the only contribution you can make is come up here and make these guys tougher, he said, then that's enough. And so that's my Ed Peary story. And I love that guy.
Yeah, me too.
So that's been, and I never turned out to be much of a wrestler because I realized that he was right. And I didn't want to leave the Naval Academy, be a wrestling coach, come back and go to another college. I wanted to graduate. So I got out of there with a 2.42 GPA, took a couple classes over, missed the ACT board by that much every semester. And hey, I worked as hard as I could, but yeah, I love that guy. Him and Coach Smith, the boxing coach.
Oh yeah.
On a hall, remember him?
Yep.
So I'd go up there and I'd box with guys as well. Never did the brigade championship thing or anything like that, but I just had fun, and so that's my Ed Peary story.
That's a good one. I love that one. So yeah, one thing I have learned about any of these transitions that you have to make, and whether that is you're going to college, you're going to get a new job, you are going to play a sport at another level, joining the military, going spec ops, whatever that is, it requires you to up your game, right? There is a natural progression of level up. You may be a stud. I remember leaving my high school and I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. I had a really good high school run. I played 5 different sports. I was, good grades, and then I go to the academy and I'm like, pew, I failed my first fitness test. I almost failed chemistry right at plebe year. It's just a horrible lesson in, I'm not as good as I thought I was. And if I want to stay here, I have to up my game. And nobody they might be smarter than me, but they're not going to outwork me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was my credo too, man. Nobody's going to outwork me.
Yeah.
Nobody.
And I remember what this is how I got through the academy academically, was I went, when they had evening meal, you'd all kind of have an evening meal formation, and then you'd go down to evening meal together. And, I would just carry my books with me at, 1800 down to the King Hall, eat my dinner, and I would just go right to the library. I didn't go back up and hang out for an hour and a half, and just, wait till study hour started at 8 p.m., when things got a little quiet. I needed that extra hour and a half of time to just, get focused and do my stuff. So I was every day, just went to the library right after evening meal and just stayed there until almost midnight some nights. because I would just be hanging out with my roommates talking, not being very focused. And I knew that. And so that was my day. And people would see me carry my books, and then they wouldn't see me till midnight. Some of them thought I was jumping the wall and just, not coming, not studying at all. But no, I never did that. I had to work that hard. I come from a little public school in North Florida that, in hindsight, I probably should have gone to NAPS and get that extra year of prep school.
I had two brothers, younger brothers. One went to MAPS and went to West Point, and then another brother went to the Air Force Academy.
Nice.
But we all struggled. We all struggled academically. So if I would have any advice for a young person, a young guy or a young gal that wants to go to one of the service academies, hey, you have to be fit physically, but you have to be fit mentally too. And the instruction that they provide you there, as long as you're a good student, as long as you're a good listener, learn to be a good listener. And as long as you can do that and not quit, hey, they will do everything they can to, help you through. And I had a lot of EI, extra instruction and everything like that. But hey, everybody was just fantastic. And so prepare yourself mentally as well as physically for any of those challenges, any of life's challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's move on. You graduate the Naval Academy and you decide to join the Marine Corps and become a pilot. Let's talk about that world for a little bit. How was that for you?
Okay. I really didn't know any SEALs there or anything else. When I was there, SEALs were like, hey, those guys were like untouchable. No
mythical figures that they didn't exist.
They were like monuments, and they still are. But I had a wires teacher, electrical engineering. Wires is the word for electrical engineering there, who had pretty much carried me through the wires class. And he told me, good thing you're going in the Marine Corps. I hadn't told him I was going in the Marine Corps, but he said, good thing you're going through to the Marine Corps, or you wouldn't make it through this class. So, and he really liked me, and I liked him. And so he encouraged me to, do those types of, to look at the Marine Corps. Second class summers, you go around, you go to Pensacola, at least we did. You go to Pensacola, you go to Quantico, you go to, where else did we go? We went to
ride a submarine.
Yeah, right. New London, Groton, Connecticut. We went surface line somewhere. I'm an old man. It's hard for me to remember all these places we went. But anyway, I said, hey, these Marines, they look sharp, man. They keep themselves fit and everything else. That's where I want to go. So they put me 3 months of temporary duty at the Naval Academy because I'd had some conduct issues. And so after that, I went to Quantico, and I always took the hard road. But anyway, I went to Quantico, and it was about 6 months of the basic school. And it was there that I decided, every Marine officer is an infantry officer, supports the guy on the ground. The rifleman on the ground, that's the backbone of the fire department, of the Marine Corps. And so that's what you're taught to do, is support that 20-year-old guy or gal on the ground and love them. And so I said, hey man, this is for me. But I looked at all the MOSs, military occupational specialty, what you do specifically in the military. And I said, hey, I want to fly. My eyes weren't good enough. I didn't have 20/20. So I went the naval flight officer and went to Pensacola, Florida, and got in VT-10, which was basic, like NFO school. You could either go in the Marine Corps, you could go F-4 or you could go A6. And I looked at those A6 guys and I go, nah. And then I saw those F-4 guys, fighter guys, and they were fighters. And I said, that's more my personality. So that's what I did. I went in that pipeline. I did VT-86, at Pensacola, and then I went into RAG, Replacement Air Group, which is where they teach you all about the aircraft. And I learned all about the F-4 and got a whole bunch of flight hours and got I'd got my wings in Pensacola, went to my first operational squadron, VMFAT 312 in Beaufort, South Carolina, my third choice, which happened to be the greatest thing that could happen for me. And I loved every minute of it. Traveled all over the Far East, met some of the finest people. The smartest guys weren't the guys that flew them. The smartest guys were the guys that worked on them.
Oh yeah.
And so you take care of those guys and they take care of you. It was a fantastic experience. I loved every minute of it. We'd work out every single day. You talk about maintenance. In the Marine Corps, then they would have every 6 months as a squadron, they would test your physical fitness. And you would have 300 points. And you would do, there was some kind of sliding scale depending on your age. You do a 3-mile run, you do pull-ups, as many as you could do, and then sit-ups in 2 minutes. And so the challenge was always the run. But to have a 300 PFT, if you could do that in a squadron, and you wanted to do that so that you could encourage your folks that you were responsible for to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's the gold standard. That 300 max, the Marine Corps PFT is still like bread and butter of that. I mean, 18-minute 3-mile is no joke.
No, especially when you're running it with boots on.
Yeah, I mean that is no
joke.
You're
running in tennis shoes. You ran it in boots.
Yeah, now I think they get to run in tennis shoes, but still, it's not easy regardless of how you're running it. It's funny, with the Olympics going on right now. I was watching the 5K run, and I think somebody did it in like 12:50. So 3.1 miles in 12:50, and like these Marines that are some of the best Marines coming in at 18. It just shows you the different level of what an athlete is compared to a tactical athlete. A 6-minute mile is gold standard for a tactical athlete. You just need to be good at running. Don't need to be great at running and be able to run a 4-minute mile, because that comes with a cost. You're not able to do some of the other things that you're going to need to do for your job, like load bearing and equipment carry and, all the strength issues that come with being a tactical athlete. So the difference between an athlete and a tactical athlete, I always just say you just have to be good at everything, not great at any one thing.
Exactly.
And that's still really good on average. If you were still to compare yourself to an average person who is not, in the professions of what you're doing or doesn't exercise very much, I mean, you're still another level, like the Olympian is to you. You're that level above the average person. So it's not, you still have to consider yourself an athlete, in this job.
Always.
Yeah. So you did 5 years in the Marine Corps, and you decided to say, you know what, it's 1982 to 83 right now. Not a whole lot going on. Good times. Reagan's president, so you get out, and what was that transition like for you? How did that go?
I knew I'd wanted to fly front seat, and I knew that as a Rio that I probably wasn't going to have as many opportunities. And some of my buddies had got out and flown in the airlines, and I realized, they don't need Rios in the airlines. So what am I going to do? So I applied to be a air traffic controller, and I got a really good score. It was vectors and everything I'd done in the Marine Corps. I got a really good score on air traffic control, but they had some issues at that time. Had a hiring freeze and some other stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And so I was like, whoa, what am I going to do now? I was married. I got married a few months after I got out of the Naval Academy. So I go, hey man, I got to, do something. Across the hall from me at the Naval Academy, there was two real studs. One guy was Larry Musinski, who flew F-14s and he was involved in the shoot down of a couple Su-22 fitters off the coast of Libya. He got one of them. And there was another guy named James Stavridis who was under consideration by Hillary Clinton to be a VP candidate. Both good guys.
He's Admiral Stavridis, Supreme Allied Commander.
Yeah. Jim Stavridis to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, a great guy, sharp guy.
I just read his book.
Cool.
Sailing True North, great book.
So he was in my company, 1 year older than me, right across the hallway. Wow. So whenever I would have issues, I'd go over there, and Jim Stavridis knew everything. So he was kind of like my tutor a little bit. And Larry Muszynski was his roommate. Larry Muszynski, his senior year, kicked at the Naval Academy. And he was a straight on kicker. And so not many guys hang out with kickers. So he needed somebody to hold for him. So every once in a while, I'd go out and hold for this guy, pop, pop, pop. And so I got into kicking a little bit. So when I got out, I thought, maybe I'll invest my money I've saved, and maybe I'll start a gym. I didn't know what I wanted to do, Stu, to be honest.
It's a hard transition.
Yeah, it's a hard transition. And so I'm like, hey, but I knew that I wasn't going to be the very best I could be staying in and plus I wanted to do something different. So I made my mind up that I was going to kick in the NFL. So I came home here, and there was a gent named Joaquin Zendejas. And the Zendejas brothers in Arizona, Max and Luis, were really, really good college kickers. One went to the University of Arizona, one went to ASU. So I started working out with those guys and training with those guys. And so I played on a public safety team. Well, I looked around at different places where I could play, and they didn't have, for guys that are, 26, 27 years old, I mean, that's a tough break. So I had some friends who were firefighters, and they go, hey man, you can get a job in the fire department, and you can go ahead and you can work out on your days off and kick and everything else, and you never can tell, you might make it. So the gym I was working out at, there was a guy named Pat Nevey who was a Mr. USA bodybuilder, great guy, I love the guy, and he knew the fire chief from Phoenix. So he sit me down to see the fire chief from Phoenix, and he sat across the table. The guy's name is Alan Brunacini, the father of tactics for the fire service. And he said, hey, you know what makes you think that you should be a firefighter? And I said, hey, it's what I was born to be. And he said, what'd you do before you were here? And I said, well, I was a shoe shine boy in my dad's barbershop. And then I joined the Marine Corps. I went to the Naval Academy, went to the Marine Corps, and I said, hey, if this job pays better than a shoe shine boy, I'm in. And so he said, no guarantees, maybe, whatever. And I left his office, but I knew when I left his office, because I told him, hey, I'll be the best firefighter you ever had. And so, yeah, I took the written exam. They had a physical exam, and we'll talk about that. It's called CPAP.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
And it wasn't called that at the time, but it's a functional exam. And so I didn't compete. I didn't survive. I competed.
There you go.
I'm going to have the very best score they ever had.
Well, you know something, just now with the term tactical fitness, right? Just now, they have just started changing military and even some law enforcement fitness tests to be more functional, to be more job related. The fire department has had that fixed, has had that correct since the 70s, with the CPAT. I mean, they have understood functional, basically tactical fitness before there was such a term in that. So let's explain that test real quick, and how'd you do?
Sure. Oh, I smoked it. But I trained for it. And I went out, actually, I applied for the Glendale Fire Department, and I didn't make it for whatever reason, which, hey, God is great, man. I went on the path I was supposed to go on. So crybaby. I went out and ran like 5 or 6 miles, cried. And I said, I just got to get in better shape. And I got to smoke this thing to where they have no doubt. They go, we want this guy on our team. And in the fire service, you're around people 24 hours a day. So I'm sure it's probably like the SEALs. They want a team player.
Oh yeah.
You want somebody that lays it all out on the line. And you want somebody you can get along with in really, really bad situations. So I busted it. And it was things like they have a pole with a hook on the end of it. When you go into a fire, you have to pull ceiling over the top of you to make sure that the fire doesn't get behind you and you get trapped. So you always got to have an egress point. So they make you pull ceiling. They made you throw hose over your shoulder and run up 3 or 4 flights of stairs and down 3 or 4 flights of stairs. They made you, pull a dummy that was, like 200 pounds, maybe 50 yards. They made us crawl through an attic with a thing over our head, just feeling, because when you get in a fire, you can't see anything. So they tested you on that. They made us take a sledge, 50-pound sledge, and hit this thing and record so many hits on this thing at so much pressure. They made us turn on a hydrant. They made us all of the function, raise a ladder, 24-foot ladder. And it's all of this is for time. And now they have like, you have to do it in whatever, 11 minutes. Then it was like, hey, the faster you do it, the better your chance of getting hired. So if you can pass that test, then they give you a piece of paper or a little pamphlet and they go, memorize all the stuff in here. And it's all the things you need to know to go to the fire academy. So I knew that thing like the back of my hand. And so that's what I did. I worked and I trained for that. And I'd go out when it was dark and there was nobody there. And I would work on all of those things and crawl through those props. And they had to kick me off that stuff. And so I got that job and I was like, thank you.
Nice.
Thank you for taking care of a shoe shine. I really appreciate it.
Nice. So where were you doing most of your work in the fire service? Was it all out in Arizona? Or did you bounce around a couple places?
It was in Phoenix. The only place I really left, I was fortunate enough to get picked to be on they've got these 28 teams, they're FEMA teams around the country. And they're hazmat techs, technical rescue techs and stuff. So whenever there's a natural disaster or some type of emergency, these are like the most trained people. And I always, any type of training that came up, any type of promotion that was available, I took it. And so I became a member of the Arizona Task Force 1 FEMA team. And because of that, I was able to go back from September 19th, a week after. The teams from Texas, because George Bush was the president, the team from Texas was the very first one to go after the 9/11 ground zero. They sent them back there. And I was in the second group that went from September 19th to 28th. So I went back and basically we cleaned up the mess. We picked up body parts, put them in biohazard bags. I didn't really do anything technical. Because of it, most of us ended up with some type of occupational exposure. I got like a node in my lung. I got COPD, but hey, it doesn't stop me, man. I still smoke my runs and get out there and everything else. And Stu Smith got me swimming, so that really helped me out a couple of years ago. But so I've just been really fortunate. But I had 35,000 emergency calls in the field here in Phoenix. Wow. I usually worked in lower socioeconomic because I loved it. I loved, being able to speak Spanish to people, and a lot of folks here are Mexican, immigrants. And so I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that culture. I enjoyed being in the street. And so 35,000 calls here and a tour of duty at Ground Zero. And that was pretty much my career.
Wow. Now you're very modest about that, but that was nearly 30 years of fire service, correct?
27 years.
27 years of fire service. So that took you from age 27 to you were in your 50s?
So I've been retired now. Well, I kind of got forced to retire because I loved it, man. I loved it. But my lungs couldn't take at the end of a fire, you have what's called overhaul.
Mm.
And so I didn't always wear my SCBA, my bottle, self-contained breathing apparatus. I'd take that booger off when we do overhaul. When you're, it's like after the fire, you're making sure that if you find a few pictures for folks, or, you want to make sure their pets got out, or a lot of folks were the neighborhoods I worked with, they didn't have a lot of money. So anything that I could save for them or that we could save for them, we would. And so I never really wore my bottle, but it got to a point where all of the dust, dirt, allergens, whatever was in the air, I couldn't handle it anymore. And I'd have like my lungs, I'd have like asthma attacks and stuff like that. So I said, hey man, I got to do something else. But I absolutely loved it. You got to stay fit. In the fire service, we don't play golf. You go into the weight room, and that's where you teach. That's where you work. That's where you discuss tactics. That's where you do those types of things. So you're either on the treadmill, you're doing your dumbbells, you're doing the bench, you're doing incline military, you're doing whatever. Yeah. But it's a social thing. But it's also, if you're not in the game, you're letting everybody else down.
That's a really good point. So that is how you maintained your physical abilities, because pretty much to get to, and you got to get through the training, and now it's a whole series of maintenance once you're an active duty operator, no matter what part of the tactical professions you're a part of. And you're also growing older. Did you find yourself having to deal with, being in your 30s, being in your 40s? How did that shift for you with how you redirected some focus on your training?
I'm still 8 years old inside. And so, but I always enjoyed being involved with young people. And being in the gym allowed me to do that. It allowed me to lead from the front. It got me respect in the field, but I so much enjoyed sharing what I knew. And you've got to continue to be a student. You've got to continue to always, have an open mind and study and get better at your craft all the time. You can't stand still, because if you stand still, there's somebody behind you that's going to overtake you. I had a captain that told me something. I said, when I was studying for the captain's exam, I said, and I really respected the guy, he's passed away now. I said, Larry, what is it? His nickname was Buck. Buck, what is it that a fire captain is the most important thing that he needs to do every shift? And he looked at me. He was a man of few words. And he said, listen. And so I thought that was pretty good advice.
Yeah, I would say.
Stay a student forever and be a great listener and really be absorbed and passionate about your craft. Don't just be satisfied to be an also-ran. Don't survive, compete.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So yeah, one thing you said that's really important, I think, is that, don't stand still, because when you stand still, you're going to start having issues physically. You're going to have issues with your tactical abilities because you're not learning. And typically what guys do as they age is they eat like they were still 20, but they're now in their 30s and 40s, and they're not as active as they used to be. And now they're gaining weight. Right. So one of the things I think that obviously helped you was staying physically fit, staying lighter. I think that the longer we can stay lighter, the longer we have, and our knees will thank us for it in the long run as well.
You're right. Eat less, move more. I was also very fortunate. I've had the same training partner now for 38 years. The fire service allowed me to do that. And so I was fortunate enough. The most coveted award going through the training academy was the fittest recruit. And so there was one guy in particular, he played football over Cal Lutheran, a little guy too. And he was a little wide out and a wide receiver. And the guy's name is Rick Garner. And to this day, he started the first professional sports emergency medical program to teach trainers, and he works with professional sports teams all over the country. He is the Stu Smith of the fire service.
Oh, nice.
And fortunately for me, he was my training partner. So when we were going through the training academy, I told him, I said, cockily, I said, hey man, you stick with me, you'll win that award. But in my mind, what I was saying is, hey, push me as hard as you can push me, because I'm going to get that award. Well, bottom line is he won that award. And as we were coming down to the very end, which was a 2-mile run, he and I were like going head to head. And I looked over at him and I said, hey man, stick with me and you'll win this race. And he, right at the very end, he smoked me. So we still laugh about that to this day, but we compete with each other all the time for 38 years. We've done that.
Nice.
And he won't let me get ahead of him and I won't let him get ahead of me. So find somebody that is as passionate about staying fit mentally and physically as you are. Don't settle. And I was much better off in a 2-seat aircraft than I was in a 1-seat aircraft. Two heads are better than one.
Oh, absolutely.
Four folks on a fire truck are better than one person on a fire truck.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the strength of the wolf is the pack, and the strength of the pack is the wolf. And so I've been real fortunate to have that same workout partner that pushes me and I push him, and neither one of us lets it go.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, we do the same thing here, in Maryland with our groups, and iron sharpens iron. I mean, that's all there is to it. And we get after it, and I enjoy seeing the guys compete with each other. Because they're faster than I am now. I'm not. I do leave my ego at the door on some events, but I can still get them in the pool.
I doubt that.
I can still get them in the pool, and if I ever beat somebody running, they hear about it, because 52-year-old legs should not beat you running.
Hey, I love your combat swimmer stroke video of you swimming, because that is some fantastic technique. If I can ever swim as good as Stu Smith, I'll be a happy man.
Oh, there you go. I love it. So, all right. So now we're phase 3 into this. You've been operational for a career, and you decide, or they decide, that you have to retire. What is life in phase 4 of tactical fitness like for you? How are you staying fit and enjoying, these years in your 60s and moving into your 70s?
I really miss the fire service. I miss that culture. It was as much my family as my wife and my 2 kids were. I spent as much time at the fire station as I did, maybe more than I did at my home. So when I left, and it wasn't on my own terms, it was because I physically couldn't, my lungs couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to be involved in the fire service. So I followed Stu Smith, and he says he writes better than he talks. I don't know about that. So, but at the Naval Academy, hey, your math and your writing is important. So I started writing patents on, and I got 5 of them.
Oh,
Not
nice.
me. I'm the lead on the patent. My names are on the patent, but I worked with engineers and other people because I wanted to create tools that I didn't have at ground zero. And I wanted to have physical monitoring devices because I didn't want somebody to have the same result with their lungs and everything that I had. So I did that when I left, and I actually let my physical fitness slide for a few years. And I've had 3 occurrences of cancer and some different things, but I got to a point, Stu, where I couldn't hardly walk down to my mailbox. And I said, hey, when I was 8 years old, I was more fit than I am right now. And so I made my mind up. I looked on YouTube. I stopped Goggins, Jeff Nichols, Stu Smith, guys like that. And those guys inspired me. So look for folks, like you said, steel sharpens steel. Look for folks better than you and emulate them. Try and do what they're doing. And so I put a little gym out in my garage. I started hitting the heavy bag and hitting the speed bag and doing things just to up my cardio. Started walking, started jogging again and doing everything else. And I did a lot of praying and said, hey, help me out, man. Help this little broken down shoe shine boy get back in the game. And so I just gutted it out. And hey man, I'm at it. And my goal now is to smoke the PST.
Oh, nice.
Just to do it. So I got the middle section of it, and I've been, that's the other thing. Just take small bites out of the elephant. Don't worry about something big, hey, work on your swim, work on swimming hard 10 minutes, taking that little 10-minute break, and then work on, the middle part of it, your push-ups and your sit-ups and your pull-ups, work on that 10-minute part of it, then take a 10-minute break. And then work on your run, work on that 1.5 mile run and get your pace down, like Stu Smith says, and do those types of things. And hey, I'm not pushing anything. I'm not being a sponsor in anything, but I'm telling you, buy books and stuff that guys like Stu Smith write, so that it inspires you, it motivates you. When during your downtime, you go, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. So those are the types of things. So now I look at that PST. Hey man, that's my next mountain, and so I'm working at it every day and I'm going to do that.
I love it. I love that. I think it's a great idea. I can't tell you how many people who have gotten out of the military or have retired and have had problems with that transition a little bit. Maybe they had to focus on their business and their family life. And they kind of neglected their fitness. And then they said, you know what? I'm tired of where I am now. I want to be who I used to be. They go back to some fitness tests that they used to do when they were younger. And they strive to, one, be able to finish it, two, progress to a level where you're actually doing pretty well at it. And then, you meet the standard and, you feel a whole lot better about yourself. Sometimes you just need to know, like, hey, I just passed the Navy SEAL PST. I'm 67 years old, just crushed this thing.
When I was a kid and I'd get an A on my report card, I'd ride my bicycle home as fast as I could because it made my mom so happy, And so you have to have something that encourages you to do it, even if it's you patting yourself on the back. This is completely off the subject, but I started thinking about the benefits of public service. And one of the things that's so great, you were talking about wanting to be professional athletes and everything. Hey, every 2 weeks you get a paycheck. And if you save your money and if you put it in an S&P 500 index fund religiously and just do that, you don't have to worry about money when you're an old guy like me. I'm certainly not rich, but something, I have everything I want. And I have everything I want because, I got a couple pairs of Levi's and some black t-shirts and stuff and all the food I can eat, good food, good, clean eating food, mostly plant-based, but because of those investments. And excuse me, being a tactical athlete allows you to do that. Being a lifetime tactical athlete allows you to do that. And I wouldn't trade my place for Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or any of those guys. My journey has been fantastic. And I think you'd agree with me.
Oh yeah.
It's so when I was a kid, I found a thing in a nearly new store and it said, it was a bust, a little plaster of Paris bust of JFK. And it said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So I put that thing up on top of my bed and, I'm telling you, you do great things for your country, you do great things for your community. Hey, it comes back, man. It's a big old boomerang. And so, but you never have to worry about cash. You never have to sweat the bills. You'll always have enough to pay them. And that's another thing about being a lifetime tactical athlete, one of the benefits.
No, that's a really good point. That's something we really don't discuss that much, because, and let's be honest, no one does it for the money.
No.
You're not getting rich doing it. But if you live within your means and, it's a great living. It's a great living.
It's fun. It's fun. I can't imagine following any other path. And, sometimes you're just driving home from work and you just feel good. You feel good, like you accomplished something that day. You just didn't push papers around. You actually made a difference, in somebody's life. And whether it's serving your country, whether it's serving your community, hey, you did something good and it makes you feel good.
Well, let me tell you, one thing that I realize, in hindsight, looking back, if I had not been able to get into the Naval Academy or join the military, or maybe things had changed, I have always enjoyed, especially going in like New York City, when those fire trucks come speeding past you, and those guys are hanging on the side of the truck, just cruising right along. I'm like, oh man, that is the coolest job ever. And I know it's hard, and I know you see some horrible things and you have to deal with those things, and there is a stress component that comes to these jobs, that you have to learn how to mitigate stress. So that there are obviously there's a lot of great parts to it, and there's a lot of stuff that you have to deal with later. How have you been in the big picture, of the firefighting service, dealing with, some of the things that you had to see, as well as, focusing on obviously the good parts of it, as part of the process. But, your resiliency has to increase each year that you're in the fire service to be able to do the things that you do. So if you have a minute on that.
That's why staying fit is so important, and it's mentally fit as well. I'm sure some of the things that you've seen haven't been too pretty either. Yeah. And when you're busy, when I was actually doing it regularly, and I worked a lot of overtime, when I was doing it, I never really thought about it because it was so much fun. And I was doing it with everybody else. And the bad things that I would see, I would erase the blackboard. I wouldn't take anything home with me, and I wouldn't bring anything from home to the fire station. But once I left and I didn't have that anymore, some things would crawl into my head. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, sure.
Some things that weren't quite pleasant would come in my head, or I'd have, little violent dreams or whatever. But so what I would say is, once you get that on your hard drive, you see some bad things, you can't get rid of them. But what you can do is you can just stay busy, and you can try and replace them with good things and stay fit and eat well and do those types of things. But yeah, I don't care if it's the military, I don't care if it's public, if it's the fire service, cops, whatever, you're going to see some bad things. That's just the way it is. Yeah. They need somebody to go out there and do it, and you're the person to do it. But so yeah, you got to stay mentally fit as well, and find a way to push those things out. They're always going to be there, but push them to the back so that you don't have to deal with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's now they've gotten a lot smarter with some of the training when you're in these jobs, and it's called resiliency training or mental toughness training, whatever you want to call it. And it really kind of helps you to understand that because you have recurring thoughts and you have some dreams, it doesn't mean you're crazy. No. Right. All it means is it's basically a survival skill in our head, as a species, that when we see things that are potentially dangerous, people have died or almost died, or you're in a very dangerous life or death situation, your brain has to deal with that in a way. Right. And so if you can think about it as, this is just a survival skill. Right. It is trying to create a pathway in your brain so you don't have to deal with that again. Or if you do deal with that again, you have a better response to that activity. So it is actually a process in your brain that it is working through. Sometimes you just have to work it through, figure out the path that you would have done or should have done or you did, and put a happy ending on the back end of that. And that is, you will start seeing fewer recurrences of those
You're
thoughts.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The other thing I've learned as I've gotten older, Stu, is that recovery is really, really important. Hey, you can go on nothing when you're young, but as you get older, and I don't feel obligated to get in the gym every day or to work out every day. I look at it like I did when I was 8 years old. Hey, I want to go out on the playground. I want to get out of the classroom for a while. I want to go out on the playground, chase the girls around, do whatever, hang out with my buddies, ride our bikes, whatever. So I look at it as play. And then when a day comes when, hey, I got something sore or whatever, hey, go over to the pool, try and work on my Stu Smith combat swimmer stroke, get in that water so that I reduce inflammation, get in that cool water, do something fun. But I'm always playing now. But you have to stay on it every day, with your diet particularly. Like you said, you don't want to beef up, man. You want to keep your body fat down, your lean muscle mass up. But but you need to recover. You be more cognizant of your recovery periods as you get older. So, don't push it to where like David Goggins, like you break all the bones in your feet and everything.
There's a fine line between mental toughness and stupidity.
Yeah.
And I'm not calling David Goggins stupid. He is one of the toughest, most inspirational people I have ever heard speak and just watched, and his story is incredible. But yeah, I mean, you can hurt yourself. And if you hurt yourself because you're doing this gut check workout, to prove that you have mental toughness, you've really screwed up the next 3 months or more of your training cycle. So it's a funny story. I had a guy that went to go run a 100-mile race, and he really hadn't prepared for it. I'm like, you really don't want to do that. You're going to come back, you're going to be all jacked up, and let's rethink this. He goes, no, I've already signed up for it. I'm just going to gut through it. I'm like, all right. So he comes back, and he ran 100 miles that weekend. I ran 100 miles that month.
Whoa.
Right. So, I'm sorry, take that back. No, I was running. I was running about 25 miles a week. So I ran 100 miles in a month. And so for the next 3 months, I ran 300 miles, right? He ran 100 miles in that one weekend. He didn't run for the next 3 months. Right. So
that's a great story.
You know what I mean? So who's better off? I woke up early in the morning to run. I ran in the cold. I ran in the heat. It didn't really matter. You build mental toughness by one step at a time. You don't do it in one giant chunk, where you break yourself doing it. You got to do it one day at a time. Work out when you don't feel like it. Sometimes I work out just because I don't feel like it.
Right.
Because I know it's going to make me better.
Consistency, make it a habit. You're absolutely right. Everything you're saying, man, is right on.
Yeah. So, hey, Jim, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Your journey is fascinating. I thank you for your service, your continued service. You made the fire service better after you left it, with continuing to work for it and create better products for the firefighters. That's what it's all about. And you gave more than you received. People may not think that, you may not think that, but you did. And the lives that you saved, is just, thank you so much. I really
got so much more than I gave, and thank you for inspiring an old guy to get back on it again and have a dream and everything. And what you're doing for young folks and inspiring them. Anybody who's watching this, if you want to have an incredible life, get involved in public service, but follow what this gent is saying, and gents like him, you know, get those books and do those things to inspire you. But hey, you want to have a lot of fun, be like this guy, be like this guy.
Well,
And be as committed as he is, and you will have a life that'll be unbelievable. That's my.
Well, there you go. So this is a tactical fitness report, kind of a journey through Jim Mabry's life, as well as his many years, decades of service. And we thank you for that, and thank you for putting in your time this morning to be on the show, because I know it's going to strike a chord with somebody, whether you're a young kid wanting to serve or you're an old guy wanting to get back to where you were. That's what this show is all about. So I really do appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate you, Stu. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you too.
All right, buddy.
All right. Until next time, folks, this is Stu Smith signing out on the Tactical Fitness Report.